It's now my great pleasure to welcome the Right Honourable David Cameron MP.
It's great to be here in Luton. As it says behind me, this is Cameron Direct, so no long speeches, I promise. I just want to say why I'm doing these meetings. This is, I think, my 43rd I've done. And the reason is, I think that politics has gone wrong in Britain in lots of ways. But I think particularly in politicians like me tend to come to somewhere like Luton, we go and see a school, we then find a television camera, give an interview, and then we go home again. And we don't actually meet any real people and answer their questions. So these are old-fashioned town hall meetings where you get to ask your question and I try and give you my answer. This is a town which will determine the outcome of the next election. I think that's right in saying Luton has always voted the way of the party that's won the election. So you are absolutely vital in the outcome of the next election. And I think you've got a right to look in the eyes of the person who says he ought to be the Prime Minister, ask a question and see what you think. That's the reason for being here tonight. Without further ado, who wants to put their hand up first? Now, microphones, sir. Microphones flying around, so if you wait for that, hope you don't mind if I strip. It's not the start of something, I promise. It's a hot night. Sir.
Mr Cameron, the majority of the constituents in this country want out of the European Union. Would you please explain why you think the European Union is so wonderful when every in this country pays £66 a week to have 75% of our rules made by 27 unelected people in Brussels?
Right. Thank you, sir. Well, first of all, I don't actually agree with the premise of your question. I think that if you ask people, do you want to leave the European Union altogether, just put up the shutters and say we don't want anything to do with you, I don't actually think a majority of people take that view. They don't. Well, we've only had one referendum. I think we need to have another referendum on Europe. But I'll come on to that in a minute. But the fact is, this is a trading nation. We export more head of our population than Japan. We desperately need to keep European markets open for British business. We need to be in those markets having a say. That's the sort of country we are. And I think the sort of UKIP platform saying let's leave the European Union, let's stop the world I want to get off, I think that would be a complete denial of vital British interests and vital British jobs. That said, do we like everything that comes out of Europe? No. Do we want to reform the European Union? Yes. Do you think we ought to have a referendum on the Lisbon Treaty, on the European Constitution? Yes, of course we should. And that's what you'll get from a Conservative government. But what you won't get from a Conservative government is the pretense that we can just walk away, leave Europe, and we wouldn't suffer economically. We would suffer, it would be a mistake, and I won't do it.
But there's been a lot of criticism about Gordon Brown's style of leadership and the lack of it. So I would like to ask you, what's your brand of leadership and what do you feel will make you a successful leader to lead Britain forward?
Very good question. We could be here all night. Let me give you the two things that I think matter the most. The first is, be yourself. Say the things that you believe in. Tell people what you want to do. I feel the problem with Gordon Brown is all the time he's not giving it to us straight. We all know that because of the financial situation in this country, we're going to have to make some cuts in public spending. We all know it. We all know it's got to happen. We need leaders who say it's going to happen and try and take people with them on what is going to be a difficult and painful journey. Rather than doing what Gordon Brown is doing, is saying, oh, we don't need to make any cuts. He knows we do, so be straight. Tell it like it is. That's the first thing. Second thing, I think we need leaders in this country who don't try and be the chairman, the chief executive, the chief financial officer, the chief operating officer. Try to do it all themselves. You've got to have a good team.
I was wondering, with the rise of the BNP, what your thoughts are on integration over sort of immigration issues, really.
Okay, brilliant, very good question. But I think we should be in favour of greater integration. All of us sharing these islands, living here, I think it's important that we build a strong community together and we actually concentrate on the things that we share and we try and build a common society. Rather than, I think, what we did a bit in the 70s and the 80s, have this view of sort of state multiculturalism, I call it, of keeping people in their different boxes and saying, well, of course, the British Muslim community will fund them separately and they live in this box over here, and the British the Hindu community, they're over here, and I think that was wrong. I think what we ought to be doing is making sure when people come to Britain that we teach English properly. If you're not speaking the mother tongue, it's very difficult to be integrated into our society, to join in things like parents' evenings and all the other things that the community offers. So I think we should have an avowed policy. Yes, respecting people's cultural differences. Yes, being a multiracial country, of course we are. But actually trying to build a more integrated society in which it's clear that everyone coming here should be learning English, should be fully integrated into our society, and actually I think we'll build a stronger country that way. In terms of immigration, I think Britain has benefited from immigration. It's brought a lot to our country, but I think the level of immigration in recent years has just been too high for actually communities sometimes to cope with. We've had net immigration into Britain over recent years of something like 200,000 in some years. That's an enormous amount, and I think it ought to be lower than that immigration level, so actually it's easier to make sure we can plan education provision and housing provision and health provision. We are, of course, it goes back to the Europe question, we're an open country. Many people leave Britain every year and decide to go and live and work overseas. Many people want to come here and live and work, and that's natural for a modern, industrialised, progressive country like ours. But I think you've got to look at the net immigration figures and work out what is manageable for a society like ours, and a Conservative government would do that. Let's have the gentleman here in the pink shirt.
Good evening, Mr. Cameron. I came to this country in 1955 as a 16-year-old, and since then I have a great deal to be thankful for to this country, for having brought up 5 children and now 10 grandchildren. But as a grandfather now, I fear for their future, and it is government policies which are responsible for most of the problems. In my opinion, our major one is family breakdown, and the big factor is family breakdown is single parenthood, and the government policy fuels this with free accommodation and fiscal benefits by prioritising their demands.
We must have a question, sir.
Yeah. What would you, if you were elected in a future government, be prepared to take a strong stance to be cruel, to be kind? That's the only way you're going to solve the problem.
Thank you, sir. Well, I don't believe in being cruel to be kind, but anyone bringing up children needs help. You know, single mums do a very, very difficult job bringing up children. I mean, I know what it's like being part of a 2-parent family, bringing up 2 children, and we often struggle. And so being on your own is incredibly tough. But I do think we should be, as you say, sir, sort of standing back and asking ourselves a question, which is this: you know, what organisation is it in Britain that actually brings up children, installs the right values, looks after us when we're sick, cares for the elderly, makes us happy when we're sad? It's the family. You know, the family is the best welfare state ever created, and yet we do so little to help and support families. And I would want any government I run to be the most pro-family government we've ever had. Now, yes, that does mean looking at the tax system and the benefit system and making sure that we actually have a benefit system that encourages people to come together and stay together, and having a tax system that rewards marriage, because marriage is a good thing, because it's about people making a commitment. It's about saying we are part of something together. It's not just me, me, me anymore. And the benefit system today is crazy. It actually pays people to separate and live apart. You know, there are millions of people in our country who actually live together but pretend to live separately because of the benefit system. Now that's crazy.